Hi, I'm Dale again, coming to you from my garage and continuing my garage organization project. Today, I would really like to get going building my base to my drill press, because also with that, it's going to be a little bit of space where I can put some other items. But before I get to that, I am kind of stuck with this table saw. I know a lot of you don't have table saws. I have one, but it is one of these that I kind of got suckered into buying very cheap, good 20 years ago. It's a Skill table saw. It's a desktop type. It cuts. It does an okay job for small pieces of wood that I need to cut. But for this project, I'm going to be doing 4x8s, and there's no way I'm going to be running a 4x8 through here. I can't even do much more than about a 12 or 13 inch cut anyways. So I'm going to build a jig that will allow me to make straight cuts every time with my circular saw. You've seen many other YouTube videos of people making jigs extremely similar or even exact as this one. I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently though. Most of them will be able to cut just on one side of the circular saw. I'm going to build mine so it'll be reversible so it can cut on both sides, the fatter end and the skinnier end. I would prefer to use 1/4 inch plywood for this jig, but I don't have any lying around the garage, and I do happen to have a 2x4 1/4 inch MDF board. So I'm going to be using that to make this. Hope you enjoy it. So here I have my 2 foot by 4 foot 1/4 inch MDF, just spare lying around. I don't remember what I got it for. And the important thing to remember here is we want to always be moving our saw along the factory cut edges. We don't want to trust our own because, again, I can't trust this table saw to cut perfectly straight, so I'm going to make sure that I always use these factory set sides. So what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm simply going to just put a piece of tape by each side so that I can remember which sides are the factory cut sides. The first 2 cuts we make need to be from either side of the MDF sheet. Remember, we always want that factory edge to be our straight edge that we slide our saw up against. I made mine at 3 inches, but it's not really that critical at this time, as long as you have enough room to clamp this jig to your work surface. The next thing we want to do is measure what's the distance from either side of the blade to each side of the circular saw. You can see that mine is about 1.5 inches to the skinny side and about 4.5 inches to the thick side. To determine the final cut, we add up the 3 inches from each of the straight edges that were cut, the 1.5 inches from the blade to the skinny edge of the saw, and the 4.5 inches from the blade to the thick end of the saw. That equals 12 inches in my case, so I'm going to make the final cut leaving about 12.5 inches, which should give plenty of room for my final precise cuts after gluing. Next, I'm going to mark a line at 1 3/4 inch from the edge. This will be a guide to where to glue down the first straight edge, leaving 1/4 inch for me to cut off for my final precision cut. Next, all we have to do is glue the straight edges down to the rest of the jig, clamp them down nice and tight, and wait for them to dry. But before you really start this step, please make sure you have enough glue to complete this step, as my glue bottle was running short and I really didn't use enough glue as I should have. For the final 2 precision cuts, we use the circular saw and the straight edges that we've just glued down. Use the skinny side of the circular saw to cut off the remaining 3/4 of the skinny side of the jig. Then repeat the process on the other side using the fat side of the circular saw. You'll be able to mark exactly where the cut will be on your stock. I may come back later and cut off a very thin edge on both sides just to make a clean cut and possibly drill a hole so that I can hang it on the wall. But at this point, you really are essentially done. So there you have it. As simple as that. This one is only 4 foot. I do plan on making an 8 foot so that I can do a full rip cut on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. But this will allow me to do cross cuts that I'm just not going to be able to do on the small table saw. So the way I've changed it a little bit from the designs that have been out there on the web and on the other YouTube channels is I have both this thin side here that I can use the skinny side of my circular saw to cut, or I can use the fatter side here All I have to do is just line up this edge here to the line that I want to cut, or this edge here to the line I want to cut, and it's going to cut right on that line every single time once I just clamp this down. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to continue following my organization of my garage, please feel free to subscribe. I'd appreciate that. And at this point now, for me, the only thing left, as I do every night, is to move everything out of the way and pull the cars into the garage. See you next time.